And what we need to do is make sure that we're all kind of singing from the same sheet of music here. Some of you, I'm sure, have been through this before, but there may be some newer people that we need to get everybody going in the same direction on. And so let's just make sure that we all understand what laws and regulations are in play here. We're going to start with the primary fair lending regulation, which is going to be the Equal Credit Opportunity Act and Regulation B. Really two things going on there. One current, one coming like a freight train. The first one is just the general idea that you cannot illegally discriminate with respect to any aspect of a credit transaction. And I'll start with even before somebody applies in the inquiry stage, okay? And even before that, in the marketing of your products and services, you can't illegally discriminate all the way through loan servicing. So any aspect of the credit transaction, you have to steer clear of illegal discrimination. That's long been what Reg B has primarily been about from a fair lending standpoint. Number two is new, and it's going to be here before you know it. This is the small business lending data collection requirement that comes by way of the 2010 Dodd-Frank Act. Okay, this still has not been finalized, but we've been promised no later than March of 2023, they will have a final rule out, and then we'll see what that runway is going to look like. It's probably going to be something like January 2025 before anything is required. Now, that sounds like a long time. It's not in compliance time. That runway that's going to amount to roughly 18 to 21 months, depending on when this rule drops, is really a fairly short runway to get a lot of things done relative to a pretty big project. So some heavy lifting coming your way. One of the big things is it's going to put a magnifying glass on commercial lending and not just new requirements moving forward, but we believe there's going to be some stuff that bubbles up to the surface that maybe hasn't been looked at as close as it should have in the past. Traditional Reg B requirements. For example, adverse action notices. I did some training with some bankers a few weeks back, and we were talking about adverse action notices in commercial loans. And they're like, well, we have to do that? Isn't there like an income thing? And so there was some misunderstanding there. I think there's going to be some more of that uncovered. And so I think you'll see some things bubble to the surface in addition to the new requirements there. But all that in the name of fair lending. Letter B, the Fair Housing Act really is similar to the Equal Credit Opportunity Act in that it was put in place to protect people from illegal discrimination related to housing activities. And so when we show specifically the regs a little bit later, you'll see how they're very similar to one another. And then the last one at the bottom of the page is letter C. It's the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act. It's not like the Equal Credit Opportunity Act or the Fair Housing Act in that it specifically prohibits something. It's about getting data to allow us to determine whether or not a bank may be illegally discriminating relative to housing, home loans, if you will. And so not everybody's a HMDA player. Okay, there are criteria and thresholds, and we've got training out there on that. But if you are a HMDA bank, understand that your data is fair game to be utilized by your regulatory agencies, by public interest groups, by the government to make determinations on how you're doing when it comes to your fair lending practices. All right, let's go to page number 3. And so we've laid out the laws and regulations. Let's go to what's your task? Hey, what are you supposed to do, or maybe what aren't you supposed to do when it comes to fair lending? Well, the task is fairly simple, which is also part of the problem. That simplicity is kind of a double-edged sword. And so I want to start with letter A. Do not consider. There's 8 things listed on page 3. Now, we're talking specifically about the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, Regulation B. They outline 8 different places you're to steer clear of when you're dealing with any aspect of a credit transaction. So we've got race, color, religion, national origin, sex, that includes sexual orientation and gender identity, marital status, age, receipt of income from any sort of public assistance program, and then any right under the Consumer Credit Protection Act. I've got to steer clear of those 8 things relative to anything I might be doing with respect to a credit transaction. Now, I know what some of you are already thinking. You're looking at the list. You're going, well, age, they got to be legal age to enter into a contract. Well, it says that there. They have to be of legal age to enter into a contract. But otherwise, we need to steer clear of this. So what seems so simple on the surface, don't consider, okay, is also part of the problem. It's that today you're here at the training. If you're a lender, you're here at the training. If you're a lender, you've probably had this training before and you go, yep, I've been here. I got this. 8 things, steer clear. The problem is we become unconsciously unaware of these 8 things. And what happens is the pen gets away from the hand or the keyboard. If I pick that up, we end up making too many keystrokes and things make their way into our file comments that shouldn't be there in the first place. In many instances, when we've had an issue of what looks like illegal discrimination, it's not because it was outright overt discrimination. It's that somebody had a one-off. Well, the problem with one-offs, and I'll share it with you here in a few pages, is that one-offs can get us in trouble. Overt discrimination is the only one that has to be intentional. The other 2 types of discrimination do not have to be intentional. A one-off can simply get us in trouble. So back to page number 3, do not consider. Steer clear of these 8 things. Again, seems pretty simple, right? Let's go to page number 4. Let's look at the Fair Housing Act. So you'll note just at a glance, very similar to page 3. Now, is this in addition to page 3? It is. Any sort of housing-related loan would be subject to Reg B, and so you'd have to steer clear of the 8. Fair housing just says these 6. And for the most part, they map over evenly. There's a few things that look a little bit differently here, but the idea is, again, pick up your pen, write down next to page number 4, number 2, do not consider. Again, fairly simple task, right? The last of the regulatory requirements from a high level would be the HMDA Regulation C. Those of you that are HMDA reporters, the data collection and reporting requirements, and then eventually all of you, and I say all of you because I believe that there are going to be very few exemptions. Again, we don't have a final rule yet, but when we get this small business lending data collection rules, you'll have to collect and report data. That data needs to be accurate, needs to be reliable. So the challenge, you know what your task is. We just outlined that for you, fairly simple and straightforward. That's also part of the problem, right?